Hey everybody, how are you doing? This is Rob of Rule of 2 Review. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having a fantastic and very pleasant day, because today we're going to dive a little bit more into a fairly sensitive topic, I think, for a lot of people, and it's a topic that I even recently discussed, and I made a video about this exact thing, and there's been a very large and growing conversation around the concept of spoilers in video games, and of course, the biggest, I think, genesis point for this conversation has really been Metroid Dread, right? My most anticipated game, of all time, pretty much, at this point, you guys know. And because of Nintendo's very, very prominent marketing for this game, lots of footage, lots of trailers, lots of Dread reports, lots of tweets, all sorts of different things, tons of information that they have thrown at us, whether it's through trailers or through, text and the Dread reports and stuff. And, the fact that a lot of people have felt that maybe this is too much. I'm seeing too much of this game, Nintendo. I don't want to know anything about Metroid. I just want to have it all be a surprise. And, it's an understandable thing. I think that in nowadays, culture, pop culture, movies and video games and stuff, we're all fairly sensitive to certain things that we consider to be spoilers, because very important details about a product, a movie or a video game can definitely be spoiled, and that's no fun. None of us want that to happen. And so, with Metroid Dread, I personally feel like the conversation has gotten a little bit too big. I think people have maybe confused some of what it means to spoil specifically a Metroid game. Not just spoilers in general, because spoilers in general are bad, and I don't like those any more than the next person, right? But I think that there's been a little bit of a misunderstanding around the spoiler conversation with Metroid. However, spoilers are also subjective, and I understand that, and I want to respect that. And I think that one of the biggest motivating factors for myself wanting to make this kind of follow-up video and conversation, this is really not so much about Metroid today. This conversation isn't really about Metroid, even though it's a part of it. One of the biggest motivating factors for me was the fact that Arlo, who a lot of you guys I'm sure know, I'm a huge fan of Arlo, by the way. I love the guy. I love his channel. I love his content, everything he does, his whole vibe. Just great. Fantastic. He had made a conversation about how he thought that Nintendo was spoiling too much Metroid for himself personally, which, while I think, yes, there's misunderstandings of spoiling Metroid, he has the right to that opinion, and so that's fine. And then he had to make a follow-up video, or he chose to make a follow-up video, I should say, this week, where he basically, he framed it as like an apology, kind of joking, but also kind of serious. And it was also a good video. I watched the video. I understood what he was getting at. I enjoyed hearing his takes in both videos. But I felt that I almost wonder if he was just forcing himself to take it too far and to be continually over-concerned with spoilers and people's reactions, and he felt that he was partly responsible for ruining the game for some folks. And so he was just being a nice guy and having a nice conversation. It's not that I think there's anything wrong with that. And I'm not titling this video like a response to Arlo. It's not that kind of thing. I'm not trying to ride his coattails. I just think that the conversation he had in both videos, specifically the apology video, made me think more about this and want to throw a little bit more of my opinions into the mix and just really have more of a conversation. This is just about us all talking about this idea of spoilers, and if maybe in general we're all too sensitive to the idea of spoilers where there really aren't those kinds of things happening. Of course, after that very long rambling intro, I do like to remind you guys that I am always trying to grow the channel here on Rule of 2 Review. I upload every single week. I talk about all things Nintendo. I talk about all things Metroid, and I discuss all things gaming. So as you watch this video, if you seem to like what I'm doing and you like what you hear, then I hope you will consider subscribing to the channel. So yeah, this is just a super conversational video. I don't know how much B-roll video game footage or anything I'm going to throw into this. This is kind of more about me just sort of addressing you guys, just like I said, like we're almost in the same room having a conversation, even though you can hear me and I can't hear you, but that's just the life of doing this on YouTube, so it is what it is. And so yeah, this concept of spoilers, man, it's tricky, it's sensitive, like I was saying in the intro here, and I'll fall back and kind of revisit a little bit of my opinion that I stated on my Metroid spoiler conversation. And when we relate the idea of spoilers specifically to Metroid, I think that my overall viewpoint here is that The Metroid series specifically, okay? We're not talking about spoilers in general. We're not talking about spoiling a story. We're not talking about spoiling a surprise reveal of like a plot point in a movie or a video game. We're not talking about spoiling the death of like a major character in a movie or a video game, you know, or spoiling how to solve a puzzle in a video game. I think that's a different kind of spoiler than just content within a video game. I think that Metroid is less built around the idea of trying to surprise people with story beats and stuff like that, or even the weapons that you're using or the bosses that you're fighting. It's more about whether you know what kind of missiles you're going to be using or not. That doesn't matter, because it's about once you have said missile or said beam or whatever, it's about now you're armed with it. Now you just let the gameplay inform your experience. It's not about, I want to be surprised by picking up a missile of some kind. It's about, I don't care if I know the missile's there. I just want to get that missile and then let the gameplay of having the missiles become my Metroid experience. I want to soak in the atmospheres and the environments and the way the Metroid games, all of them, 2D or 3D, have been designed. It's not about surprising you with a certain kind of beam. It's not about surprising you with who the enemy behind that door is. It's about you're just experiencing the gameplay. The gameplay is at the core of Metroid. There is story and there is lore. And as I said in that video, I, as a Metroid fan, seem to care more than most Metroid fans about that stuff, yet I still am not worried about the surprise of, oh my god, I can't believe that boss is in this game. Because to me, it's just about fighting the boss. It's not about being surprised that the boss was behind that door. And so again, I'll remind you, I'm not trying to tell you that you have to feel the same way as me. And I'm not trying to say that my perspective on Metroid or spoilers or anything is the right way to feel. It is subjective, man. I get it. We all have different kind of thresholds for these kinds of things. And I think it's fair for us all to respect that stuff, which is why, by the way, I wish I said this earlier here, but I have no intention on actually saying spoilers out loud in this video about Metroid specifically. It's not about that. So I'm not trying to tell you that you need to feel the way about Metroid that I do, but I am sharing with you how I feel and why I feel like maybe some people are misunderstanding kind of how the Metroid games are designed. Because I do believe that Nintendo has always designed Metroid in this way. It is how I've interpreted Metroid's design going back to the NES game. Remember, I'm an old man, okay? I grew up playing the original game on the NES before the Super Nintendo console even launched. I am that old, okay? And so I have this experience with the franchise. It's my favorite franchise. That's how I've interpreted it. So when we relate this back to the kind of the bigger conversation just about spoilers in general, Arlo's conversations, other people's reactions, people tweeting about stuff, people getting angry in videos about Nintendo, how could you show us this about Metroid? I think that while it is possible to spoil things in a video game or a movie that should not be spoiled, in general, I think that maybe as a society or a gamer culture or a pop culture, you know, community, whatever, I think that maybe we're a little bit too sensitive about this stuff. To the point that, again, going back to Arlo specifically, and this isn't a call out, because again, I love Arlo and I liked his 2 videos, even though I disagreed with many of his points. And I disagreed with the fact that he felt he had to make an apology. Like I said, kind of a jokey thing, but I disagreed with that. I think that, you know, him feeling like he had to kind of make that follow-up video is an example of people just being too worried about trying to hide from anything you might possibly see or learn about something you care about in the age of the internet. I personally see there as 2 main contributing factors to my personal viewpoint on spoilers, the Metroid spoilers, spoiler in general, that kind of inform my opinion about not being super upset about this kind of stuff or upset about the Metroid things. One of them is we just live in the age of internet culture, okay? And that's a huge factor that I'm going to come back to. The other is I have a personal belief, and I do know that weirdly not everyone agrees with this. I think it's strange, but it is your right to feel this way. I personally believe that if the company behind the marketing puts something into their marketing, that it's probably something that they don't consider to be a spoiler. There are exceptions. I've really only seen that in movie trailers. I think some movie trailers do take it too far. But I also think that movies are different enough of a medium that I can acknowledge how it's more possible to spoil a movie before it comes out than I think it is to spoil a game before it comes out. with official marketing, not about leaks and things that people say online. I'm talking about an official movie trailer put out by the company or official marketing materials put out behind a video game, okay? The official stuff, easier to spoil a movie in an official trailer. I personally find it harder to spoil a video game in official marketing materials. So when Nintendo decides to show a weapon upgrade, a type of missile, or a boss, or whatever the case, or even a story plot point in a trailer or in a Dread report, I'm like, well, they clearly know that this is stuff safe to tell people and show people beforehand, knowing that the stuff that isn't meant to be shown will be saved for when we actually play the game. And so if Nintendo or any video game company has felt it's okay to show this in a trailer or something, I'm like, they know. They think this is okay to both build hype, but also keep the most important stuff secret. And so I believe that that's something that's okay. So when I see the stuff Nintendo has put out there about Metroid Dread, I'm like, I guess I'm just going to be that weirdo who trusts the company making the game to know what's okay to include in a trailer. Now, the age of the internet conversation, boy, this is an important one, man, because I think we all have to acknowledge that in the age of the internet, and maybe this is something more of the younger people out there who've mostly grown up in the age of the internet need to hear, as opposed to some of us older people who've definitely grew up playing games and watching movies before the internet was even in our households. I think that in the age of the internet, you just have to understand, man, that stuff is going to get out there. Now, people can do it the wrong way, like leaking The Last of Us 2 kind of stuff and leaking the end of a game or a movie unofficially. That stuff is not okay. Or after something comes out, being a little bit brazen with how you talk about the big reveal at the end of the movie or the end of the game, yeah, that's a problem. But when we talk about, if you're somebody who likes Nintendo and Zelda and Metroid, or you like Naughty Dog and you like The Last of Us and whatnot, and you have an online presence and you follow things about video games or movies on YouTube and on Twitter, you're literally asking for yourself to find out about stuff in official trailers. Here is a great example of a comment on Arlo's video, okay, the apology video that he made, that to me really kind of sums up what I think is a problem. And so this is what this person had to say, not even about Metroid, this has to do about Zelda, because Arlo included a clip of the official Breath of the Wild 2 teaser in his video. See, as soon as I see that Breath of the Wild 2 freefall, I click off any video that I see it in. I already got something big spoiled for me in that game, and it still actually enrages me when I think about it. This video isn't even about Zelda, and I still have to be on the lookout for Zelda spoilers because you or any other content creator is probably going to play more trailer footage from the game after the freefall clip. When Breath of the Wild 2 comes out, I'm already going to know the sky plays a big part in it. That is a big spoiler. Metroid Dread spoilers I wouldn't mind hearing you talk about because I'm not picking up that game. Everybody is picking up Breath of the Wild 2, so to me, adding trailer clips from that game when the video is about Metroid spoilers is, well, never mind, you get my point. So there's kind of a lot to unpack in a comment like that. And of course, I'll give the same disclaimer I've already said a few times. This person is well within their right to feel this way, man. I'm not trying to take anything away from somebody who feels this way about anything when it comes to spoilers, video games, movies, or what have you. But I will say this is a very overly sensitive kind of spoiler perspective that this person has. And I think it's dangerous to feel this way and have any kind of online presence where you follow anyone who talks about video games. If this is how you feel, you gotta change your whole online presence. You have to follow and pay attention to nothing about video games because this, to me, is pretty extreme. And the thing is, a lot of people feel the exact way this person does. They are that sensitive about it. I mean, going back to something that this person says, they even say that now when I pick up Breath of the Wild 2, I'm gonna know the sky is a big part of it. That's a spoiler to me. That part's been spoiled. And it's like, really? That's just the framing of the game. That's the most base level knowledge about the game. Do you want to know anything about a game or a movie or a story before you go into it? I mean, if you want to know that little about a product, you need to literally just not be on the internet, or you need to not follow or watch anything and we'll stay within the concept of this comment, you need to not be involved with anything Nintendo or anything Zelda or anything video games. If you want to avoid knowing anything like that about any sort of product. I mean, the game is like, here's Breath of the Wild, the sky plays a part of it, but you're going to play the game to learn about it. Why do you not even want to know something so basic as like what the framing and the conceit of the game and the context of the story is going to be? Again, you're within your right to do so, but if you feel that way, you need to make your online presence about following totally different things. Follow only people you know in real life. Follow sports people, follow dance people. I mean, follow things that have nothing to do with video games. If you care that much about knowing you can jump off of a cliff in Breath of the Wild 2, you should not be following Arlo, the Nintendo guy, on YouTube. I mean, does that make sense? Am I crazy here with what I'm saying? I just feel like everyone is allowed to have their own individual thresholds for spoilers on anything that they want. And I know that I need to wrap this up because I know I'm getting to the point where I'm going to keep repeating myself because these points to me are just so important. But everyone's threshold can be your own, but you need to manage it accordingly, okay? So if you're this sensitive, you need to avoid anything that has to do with video games. If you don't want to know anything about like the next Batman movie because you love Batman and you want to go in as blind as possible, don't follow anything about Batman, Superman, DC Comics, DC movies. Probably avoid Marvel movies, avoid Disney, avoid movie content and Twitter accounts and all that stuff. Do you see what I'm saying? Avoid comics, avoid all of it. You need to follow people who freaking play basketball. Don't follow anything that could barely tangentially relate to Batman if you don't even want to see that Batman wears a mask in the movie. Like, if you don't even want to know that, you need to avoid it online. I mean, and so this whole rant that I'm kind of doing about this thing isn't really about me being angry necessarily, and it's not about me calling out like this person again or Arlo or anything. It's just about we live in this culture where people can be sensitive to this degree about spoiling something and knowing anything about a product before you experience it, a movie or a video game or what have you. And if you want to go in that blind to stuff, you need to just not even know about it. You just need to be surprised when you see this video game on the shelf or this movie in the movie theater. You can't make yourself aware of things that exist if you want to be this blind. And so if we bring this back to the Metroid and the Arlo thing and kind of wrap this up here, I guess I don't know what I think. I've probably said everything that I do think, right? You know, Metroid, I think, has a unique sort of way that the games are created, and it's a unique experience. Other video games that are very plot heavy, like even a Zelda game, for example, there are plot points you could spoil in a Zelda trailer. Absolutely. I don't think they've done that. They've given us the mystery, the intrigue in the Breath of the Wild 2 trailers, in the Metroid trailers. They're setting up the intrigue and the mystery, and in order to do that, they show you some things. But like, it's the same for movies. Like, you need to be able to know what the setup is before going into a product, right? Metroid is very cleverly designed around, yeah, we've got story and a sequence of events, but really you play a Metroid to experience the gameplay. Unless you feel that playing a game with a controller in your hand could be spoiled, then I don't know what to say. And really, you can't spoil that because you have to hold the controller and play the game to experience that, right? And so, yes, this is all based on my subjective opinions about spoilers, about Metroid, even about Zelda or whatever. But I just think that we're taking it maybe a little bit too far nowadays. And so Arlo, you know, people getting mad at him and saying stuff like this in his comments, I guess of course he felt he had to apologize because people are this sensitive in his comments about the fact that he discussed something. And keep in mind, he didn't even really spoil much in his first video, but people felt that he did because he showed the base level stuff about Metroid. But people trying to avoid even just seeing that Samus is in the next Metroid game got mad that they saw Samus was in the next Metroid game in his video where he didn't even outright spoil all that much. It was all official stuff put out by Nintendo. So the whole thing is messy, it's divisive, people are sensitive, it's controversial, there is no win. I'm just another guy putting my own perspective and 2 cents out there about it. And so, you know, to end this video, I guess this is just what I have to say about it. So I know I'm going to get a lot of flack and probably pushback on this. Surprisingly, my first video about the spoilers on Metroid, I got a lot of great positive feedback and support. I really didn't get a lot of negative feedback. I feel like in this one, I may be opening myself up quite a bit more to some pushback and negative feedback, and that's okay. You know, I tried to, be very stern and hold my ground on how I feel while still being sensitive to the fact that everyone has different opinions and thresholds for spoilers. So hopefully I balanced that well enough while still explaining my side of things. And again, just to make it a point at the very end here, I love Arlo. I don't know the guy. We've never spoken. I don't know the guy. We're in the same circles, but I've never talked to him. He probably doesn't even know I exist, to be fair. But I like his channel. I like the guy. I didn't agree with his 2 videos on the topic, but I enjoyed them. I liked hearing his perspective, and I acknowledge everyone can feel the way he felt. I do feel bad he felt he had to make that apology video, jokey or not. But I still enjoyed listening to him talk about it. And so it only motivated me to share more of my thoughts. This video isn't really about him, even though I referenced him in his video several times. It's not about that. I'm a big fan. It's not a call out. So same to the person whose comment that I featured here too. So these are my thoughts on spoilers and Metroid and the whole topic. What do you guys think? Am I crazy and out of my mind? Or do you agree with what I said? Maybe you meet me somewhere in the middle. Whatever you think about my opinions, whatever your own perspectives on spoilers and Metroid, talk about it all below. And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of 2 Review, and I will see you next time on another video.